The Value of Business Relationships and How to Keep Them, Part 2. I'm Arthur Petropoulos, managing partner here at Hillview Partners. We're a middle market, lower middle market, mergers and acquisitions and capital advisory firm. We help companies sell themselves. We help companies secure capital. We work with lots of wonderful companies, primarily non-sponsored or companies that are not owned by private equity or venture capital, owned by families, owned by entrepreneurs, owned by small groups of investors that are seeking to pursue strategic objectives, whether it be exits or capital. And so last video we chatted on 4 considerations of business relationships, how to keep them, why they're important. Today we wanted to talk about 4 more takeaways from our experience in running Hillview Partners, my experience in the 10 years prior to that, working in investment banking, private equity, corporate development. And to start today's video, number 5 out of the 8 is be meek. So we mean meek in the biblical sense of strength under control, having the sword but keeping it in a sheath and not using it, being able to be vicious but not necessarily always having to utilize it. And we like to think of it from the concept of let people know that you're capable of inflicting damage, but if all you do is inflict damage, you're really a tyrant. And if you are not capable of inflicting damage, you're really a mouse and just at the whim and mercy of everybody else. And so the key in a business relationship is to be meek. Let people know you're strong, but that strength is under control. And therefore, when you do act diplomatically, there's some value to it because you have the capacity not to act diplomatically. And similarly, that when you do have to be vicious, when you do have to fight, you're capable of doing so. And those around you are having relationships with you know you're capable of doing that. Number 6, always be willing to talk. Always be willing to trade ideas. Now, I don't mean every single LinkedIn message that you get that someone says, hi, I want to sell you something. Do you have 20 minutes to chat? Because no one has that kind of time. But for those people that you have relationships with, remember the most valuable thing you can give people is time. And therefore, even if you give someone 15 minutes of your time at some point that you have a relationship with, it will bolster the relationship. If someone says, hey, you know what? This could be a crazy idea, but let me run it by you. If I told you how many deals we've had come to us because we listened and took the time to hear someone out. Now again, you have to be judicious with your time. We are very clear with people as to kind of what things meet the parameters of the companies we work with and what things do not. But that being said, if someone says, hey, I want to trade an idea, I want to think about it, from an ideation kind of creative perspective, we will have those chats. And then similarly, from a conflict resolution perspective, if in a contentious situation, which obviously there are plenty of in business, people know that you're someone they could approach and talk to, or that you reach out and say, hey, look, let's just have a chat. Let's just hash this thing out. Let's listen to it. Right? Many times, the optimal outcome for a situation sits right behind a few difficult conversations. And if you can be the creator and the encourager of those dialogues, and oftentimes you will be seen as the leader towards resolution in situations. And oftentimes it's not magic and it's not science, it's just who's willing to kind of take the gut churning for a little while to have the necessary conversations. And I think the next point, which supports this, is the idea of don't be a victim. So I like to start most conversations in business when there's some level of contention by saying to people, or acrimony or adversarialness, or where something feels like there's some friction, is just get on the line, whether it's phone, Zoom, in person, and say, nothing you could say could hurt my feelings. And over time, been able to actually make yourself feel that way. I think early in the career, we'd say that, and then you'd go cry in the shower at night. But at least at this juncture, we say, look, nothing you could say could hurt our feelings. We are interested in what you're looking for here. We're interested in how you feel here. We validate your feelings. We want to know what you think. We can say why we agree or disagree, but we will certainly acknowledge that the way you feel. And oftentimes, that is the key to unlocking a difficult situation, is that people don't necessarily need you to agree with them. They just need you to hear them out. They just need you to listen to it. And you can have disagreements. You can be incredibly on different pages. However, if people know that you're not going to be thin-skinned and cry and whimper about whatever they tell you, and you can just listen to them and have a conversation, then you'd be surprised at what you can accomplish. Call me optimistically cynical in life, but I think that at worst, most people are self-interested. I don't think that there's much malice as some may think. I think people are just self-interested, and sometimes self-interested behavior can ultimately lead to outcomes that could be contrived as malicious to others, right? Like if someone is self-interested and they do a particular thing and it damages you or you incur some pain because of it, it's very easy to say that person did that thing because they wanted to inflict pain on me. But in reality, they really wanted to either make themselves feel better or get something that they were after. Now, if you look at business relationships and say, what are people actually obligated to do? And you only hold them to that, you'd be amazed at how non-victimized you can be. Is it someone's obligation to make you happy? Is it someone's obligation to do everything to make your life easier? Is it someone's obligation to do the deal precisely the way you'd want? No. So the idea of getting upset with someone because they did not do something that they were not obligated to do is just foolish. And so the idea of being happy that someone does something they're supposed to do is good, but the inverse of that, of being unhappy when they didn't do something they didn't have to do, is incorrect. And so hold people to what they say they're going to do. Don't hold them to any sort of imputed standards to things that they have no obligation to do. And it's a lot easier to get through with business, to maintain the relationships, and not manufacture ways of being upset with people. The last point, the road is long and the load is heavy. It has never, and it will never be easy to be anything of meaning, I think, in this world, and particularly in business, because that's the only arena that I'm in that I can speak to. And the only advice I can say as it pertains to relationships and takeaways from those relationships in business over the last 15 years is don't make it harder than it has to be. It's going to be difficult. If you can get a handful of good people around you as you traverse and slog through that abyss, well, that's a good thing. And if you have to be anything to people that you don't like in business, then it's better to be indifferent than it is to create enemies, because all of those things just sap away bandwidth and battery. And so that's a thought. This is the aggregation of observations, experiences, sentiment. Don't like, and we're not going to use the word feelings, but at least some words of wisdom as to business relationships, how to keep them, and why they're important. So we do want to recap them quickly before we end the video. We'll recap the 4 from last video as well. Is 1, hope for agreement and outcomes, not in philosophy. 2, compromise versus righteous solitude. 3, do the right thing, even when you have nothing to gain from it. And 4, the world is a small place and difficult to traverse with burned bridges. Today's video, 5, be meek, strength under control. 6, always be willing to talk and always be willing to trade ideas. 7, don't be a victim. And 8, the road is long, the load is heavy, don't make things harder than they have to be. As I understand, some of these are conclusions, some of these are points of advice, some of these are thoughts. It's a bit of a grab bag of a video, but I can't emphasize enough the value in maintaining, managing, nurturing, pruning at times, but the relationships throughout business, because at the end of the day, all business in this world is some sort of interaction between people, whether it's computer chips or potato chips, preferred stock or livestock. We're always going to be dealing with people, and those relationships are what are either going to make or break a lot of the situations that we go through and the objectives that we're seeking. So that's the thought for today. Hope the week continues to go well for everyone. Keep pushing forward. God bless. We'll see you next time.